Hey everyone, this is 3.4. Our learning objectives are to find the slope of a line given 2 points on the line, find slope given an equation, and interpret slope-intercept form, finding the slopes of horizontal and vertical lines, and comparing parallel lines and perpendicular lines. So the slope of a line. The slope m of a line containing the points x1, y1, and x2, y2 is given by rise over run. So slope is the number of units up or down that we go from the origin, or sorry, from a point, and then the number of units left or right. Okay, so basically I need 2 points, and it's usually a fraction, and it describes the steepness of the line on the plane. So if I have a point here and a point here, I connect them with a line, right? And it also means I'm going up some number, I'm going over some amount, up some amount, over some amount. That was terrible. So apparently, I need a better angle. We'll do a steep one. All right, so I go maybe up 1, 2 over 1. So that slope would be up 2, I rise 2, I move over 1. Okay, so that's the slope of 2. It's just a number to describe the steepness of a line. It's usually a fraction because we use rise over run, the change in the y-axis over the change in the x-axis. Okay, we need 2 points. X1 and y1 are just on point 1. X2 and y2 are on point 2. Okay, and so we take point 1. Point 1's 2 numbers. They just get a sub 1 to denote that they're the first point. These get a sub 2 to denote that they're the second point. So we take the second point of the second point's y, we subtract the first point's y. That is a change in the rise. And if you think about it, y is the axis going up and down, right? So the y value tells you whether to go up and down. So that is why the rise uses the difference in y, in the y value of the 2 points. Okay, and then run is the change from left to right. Yes, because x is the y-axis going left or right. It's the value that tells us whether to go right or left when we're leaving the origin. And so the run uses the difference in r values of the 2 points. Okay, so y2, y1, x2, x1. Remember that we can't have 0 in the bottom of a fraction. You can't divide by 0, you get an error. So it will not work if x2 and x1 are the same number. Okay. So for example, let's use the slope formula. The slope formula, we call the slope m. The slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, find the slope of the line through 0, 3, and 2, 5. You need the coordinates of any 2 points on the line. Okay, either point can be P1. I'm just going to take the first number I see is P1. The second number is P2. Yeah. So if I look at this, it's going upward, right? If a line is going upward, we call this a positive slope. And in contrast, down here, we have a downward slope. We call this a negative slope. So look at slope like you're reading. We always go from left to right, right? So if it's going up from left to right, it's positive. If it's going down from left to right, it's negative. All right. So let's travel from one point on the line to another point on the line. This point is 0, 3. This point is 2, 5. Okay. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That one is way too big. Y2 was, sorry, y x1, x2. I'm going to label them over here. Y. Start over. P1 has x1, y1, right? Because we have an x and a y for each point. P2 has x2, y2, right? Because those are the x and y of point 2, x and y of point 1. So y2 is 5. Y1 is 3. So we say 5 minus 3. X2 is 2. X1 is 0. And we always subtract. So 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 minus 0 is 2. 2 divided by 2 gives you a 1. Yeah? So the slope is 1. That means, and remember, I can turn any number into a fraction by dividing it by 1. So a slope of 1 means I go up 1 from this point. I'll use this point. From this point, I go up 1, and then I go, since it's a positive slope, positive on the x-axis, positive on the y-axis, positive on the x-axis, I get to my next point. Up 1 over 1, I get to my next point. Positive on the y, positive on the x, I get to my next point. That's all the slope is. It's giving you directions from one point on the line to the next point on the line, okay? So M is 1. Here, it's a negative slope, so M will be a negative number, okay? So we have 4, 3. Which one's 4, 3? 4, negative 3, sorry. So this one's 4, negative 3, and this one is 2, 2. Okay? And then we graph the line. Find the slope of the line, graph the line. We will call, what do you like? I guess this will just be x1, y1, x2, y2. You will not get a different answer if you make this point 1 and this point 2. All right. So M is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that becomes 2 minus negative 3 over 2 minus 4. 2 minus a negative 3 becomes a positive, right? A negative minus a negative becomes a positive. So that's just a big plus sign. 2 plus 3 is 5. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Okay. And I can just put that negative out in front. Negative 5 halves. Okay. Even if I switched them up, right? So let's switch them up. Let's say this is x2, y2. This is x1, y1. Okay. So now I have negative 3 minus 2 over 4 minus 2. Okay. Now I get negative 5, positive 2. So the whole fraction is still a negative. It's just that here the negative sign was on the bottom, here it's on the top, but either way I can pull it out in front. Right? You get the same slope no matter which point you choose as your first point. So M is negative 5 halves. And let me show you. So for negative 5 halves, that means we go down 5, right? That's the rise, sorry. So I rise negative 5, I run 2. I rise negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Run positive 2. So that was a negative y, positive x, right? But what if I decide it's 5, negative 2, rise, run? Yeah. Now, that means I go up 5. So I'll start at this point, go up 5, positive 5 on the y, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then negative 2 run. So I end up at the same place. It's still that many, that distance. Those points are still that same distance away from each other. Okay. So that's how we practice slope. And we can write an equation in slope-intercept form of a line. When a linear equation, which just means line, right? An equation that makes a line in 2 variables, the 2 variables are x and y, is written in slope-intercept form. M is the slope and B is the y-intercept. M is the slope and B is the y-intercept of the line. So for example, 3x, 3, wrong color. 3 is the slope, 4 is the y-intercept where it crosses y. So we will go 0 from the origin, 0 on x, negative 4 on y. Okay. Find the slope of the line negative 3x plus 2y equals 11. Okay. So if I can get this into slope-intercept form, I can find B, which is the y-intercept. And just to be clear, the y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, we'll practice this. Find the slope of the line, negative 3x plus 2y equals 11. Y must be isolated, so our first step is solve the equation for y, okay? Negative 3x plus 2y equals 11. Solve for y. So I'm going to add 3x to move it over. So now I have 2y equals 3x plus 11. Okay. Keep isolating y, divide by 2. So now it's y equals 3 halves x plus 11 over 2. Find the slope of the line. So that is in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope. Right? So our slope is positive 3 halves. That means we go up 3 and then we go to the right 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 will be our next point, and then we would make a line. That is our slope. That is our line. It's positive, it rises from left to right. All right, next one. Find the slope of the line negative y equals 6x minus 7. It almost looks like y is isolated, but it is not, right? It is not because it's being multiplied by a negative 1. So we're going to divide by -1 so that I can get it in slope-intercept form. So now we have y is -6x plus 7, right? Because a negative divided by a negative is a positive divided by a negative becomes a negative, and then a negative divided by a negative becomes a positive. So that's all we did. So our slope is, remember, rise over run, and it's the letter M, and it is -6. Wait, rise over run is just -6. You can turn anything into a fraction by putting a 1 under it, okay? So what this is telling me is from this point, I need to go down 6. And then I go over 1. So that's what a slope of -6 looks like. Down 6 over 1, okay? Now let's apply this in a word problem. Okay, the adult 1-day pass price Y for Disney World is given by Y equals 3.53x plus 67.39. Oh my gosh, that's where X is the number of years since 2006, okay? Predict the ticket prices for 2026, okay? So first, let's name X and Y, okay? X is the number of years since 2006. I think it's easier to say that that is year minus the number 2006, right? Because if I'm trying to find 2007, that's been 1 year since 2006. So I would say 2007 minus 2006, right? And I'm going to say Y is the price. Okay. What else do we know? It's in slope-intercept form, right? So 67.39 would be like the y-intercept, right? So the y-intercept means 0 for x, 67.39 for y. What does that mean? That means at year 0 or year 2006, right? Because 2006 minus 2006 would be 0. In 2006, the price was $67.39. Does that make sense? The year is 0. 2006 minus 2006 is 0. The price is $69.39. Okay. And then we have one more. We have the value M. They told us M is 3.53. What does that mean though? That means that every year that passes, right? And from one point, from the point 0, 67.39, the price is going to go up 1, 2, 3.5 over 1. Okay. So the price increases by $3.53 each year. Okay. So now we know what all of this means, why we have an equation. We know Y is the price. 3.53 is how many dollars more we pay every year. X is every year. And then it started at $67.39 in 2006. All right. So the ticket prices for 2026. 2026. what do we need to do with the number 2026? Can I just put 2026 in there? 2026 is a year, right? And so the only place I see year is here, year minus 2006. So if I want to find X, right? Oh, and I want to find Y, right? The price is Y. So we're finding Y, and we have a year. But my year, I need to subtract 2006. So that means 2026 minus 2006 is 20, right? So that is my X. Year minus 2006 is my X. We want to find Y, and we have a B and we have an M. So I'm going to put it into the equation. Price equals $3.53 times 20 years plus our initial or first price of $67.39. Okay. $3.53 times 20 years becomes $70.60 plus $67.39. Disneyland, so expensive. So if I add 70.60 plus 67.39 in my calculator, I get $137.99. So the ticket price in 2026 will be $137.99. And this is how we use math and algebra to predict future events. You find an equation that describes the data you have, and then you are able to put in variables for the situation you want to plan for or you want to predict. Vertical lines. The slope of a vertical line. A vertical line, I keep putting papers on the stack and they keep falling. That's that sound. Vertical means up and down, okay? A vertical line has an undefined slope. Okay? So find the slope of this line, right? What are these points probably? Well, I know this is X is 0. This is the X-intercept. It's 0 and maybe -2, right? That fits with that one. And it's behind the Y-axis. So, oh, sorry. -2, 0. We went -2 on the X, and then we went 0 up or down. I apologize. So that one's -2, 0. We'll say that one's, it's still -2, right? But maybe now we went down 1 on the Y. And then this one's maybe -2, 1.5. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Okay. So here are our different points. I just looked at it and I saw that it's a straight line. And so it's not moving to the left or to the right. So it's staying at -2 on the X-axis, right? So if I tried to take the slope, here are my points, right? If I tried to take the slope of these points, I'll say this is P1, this is P2, okay? So M equals Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. So Y2 will be -1, Y1 will be 0, X2 will be -2, X1 will be -2. So that is -1 over 0, right? Because -2 minus a -2, that's like adding -2 plus 2, and you get 0. Anything divided by 0 is undefined, right? -1 divided by 0 is undefined. It's an error. okay? So for that reason, a vertical line has an undefined slope. It will only ever cross the x-axis. Will never cross the y-axis, okay? Find the slope of the line x equals -2. It's a vertical line, right? X equals -2. Hold on, I can Desmos this for you. X equals -2. Yeah, so that slope is undefined. If it only crosses the x-axis, it will only have x in the equation. Yeah. When a line only crosses the x-axis, it will only have x in the equation. No y value. Okay. So we come down here to a horizontal line and we see that it only has y in the equation. So equations that only pass through the y equations, write it down. Equations that only pass through the y-axis will only have a y variable. No x variable. So if they have an x and a y, pass through both the x and y axis, okay? Equations with both an x and y, like y equals 3x, will pass through both axes. That makes sense? So if I only see an x, I know it's only going to pass through x. If I see x and y, I know it's going to pass through x and y. If I only see y equals, it's only going to pass through y. Okay. And let's look at this one. The slope of the line y equals 3. So this might be 3. X0, y3. X -4, y3. So y is staying the same, right? X +4, y3. Let's look at the slope. Rise over run, right? Is it rising? Let's see. X1, y1, x2, y2. So we're going to say 3 minus 3 over 4 minus 0. So that's 0 over 4. So anything that does not rise, right? So if it does not run, we have to say undefined. What about if it does not rise? It will always be 0 because any number divided by 0 is 0. So m is 0. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0. So the slope of the line y equals 3 is 0. This is Mr. Slope Guy. He is here to help us with slope. So we're reading slope from left to right, like you're reading anything else, English and math, right? So a line, here are your lines. A line that goes up like this is a positive line that has a positive slope, okay? A line that goes down like this will always have a negative slope, okay? A line that goes straight up and down will have an undefined slope, and a line that is flat will have a zero slope. Okay, so this is just to help you remember that, let's say horizontal is 0, vertical is undefined, up from left to right is positive, down from left to right is negative. Okay, that's Mr. Slope Guy. Parallel lines are like train tracks. Always the same distance apart. Will never cross. Okay, two lines that never intersect or cross and have the same slope, they stay the same distance apart. If they were different at all, eventually they would cross, right? So if I have these two, if they're different at all, their slopes, eventually, as I went off further and further into space, they would cross. So they have to have exactly the same slope, all right? Perpendicular lines are two lines that intersect, but they must intersect at a right angle, at a 90-degree angle. Two non-vertical perpendicular lines have slopes that are so these have the same slope. So this would be a slope of 1, maybe. And so that one has to have a slope of 1, okay? Non-vertical perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals, okay? Opposite means we change the sign. Or it's the opposite, it's this equal distance from 0, but the other direction, right? 2, -2, -30, 30, okay? And then reciprocal means we flip the fraction. Okay, slope A, slope -1/A. So slope, what would we say? This one looks like slope -3/2. So to flip it, I'm going to say this one is +2/3. So I flip the fraction and I change the sign. Okay. Line 2 is 2/3, making line 1, if it is a perpendicular to line 2, -3/2. Okay. And even if it's just a whole number, you just put a 1 under it to make it into a fraction, right? So maybe L2 has a slope of -3. So L1, -3, I can turn into a fraction by putting it over 1. So L1 will have a slope of 1/3 because it went from negative to positive, and then it went from 3 to 1/3. All right, so example 8 is determine whether the line 6x plus 2y equals 9 is parallel to negative 3x minus y equals 3. And remember, if they're parallel, that means they have the same slope. M should equal M, same slope. So these are currently in standard form, ax plus by equals c. So we want to change them to slope-intercept form, which is y equals. So get y on one side, everything else on the other side, and then you can see what m is to determine whether they have the same value for m. So just divide it in half. 6x plus 2y equals 9. And then we will subtract 6x to get y alone. And so I'm trying to get it in y equals mx plus b form. So now I have 2y equals, and since I want mx in front, I'm going to put the negative 6x in front plus 9. Okay, now just divide everything by 2. Y divided by 2 just becomes y. Negative 6 divided by 2 becomes a negative 3, right? With the x. And then plus, and we can just leave 9/2. Okay, and we're looking for the slope. So m is negative 3. For the first line, we can label that L1. M is negative 3. And line 2, negative 3x minus y equals 3. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is move the x. So I'm going to add 3x. So now I'm left with negative y equals 3x plus 3. That's a negative 1, right? And I don't want a negative y, so I'm going to divide everything by negative 1. So now I just have y equals negative 3x, because a positive divided by a negative is a positive, is a negative, and then minus 3. So this m is also negative 3 for L2. So you can say they have the same slope, they are parallel. Example 9, determine whether the line x plus 3y equals negative 15 is perpendicular to negative 3x plus y equals negative 1. So now perpendicular slopes, the m of L1, so L1m will be a, right? Then L2m, the slope of line 2, will need to be 1 over a, and everything is negative. So we need to flip the fraction, change the sign. If that is true for the slope, then they will be perpendicular. So first we have, and it's the same thing, so we're just going to solve for y. X plus 3y equals negative 15. Okay. Get everything to this side except y. So negative x. That becomes 3y equals negative x minus 15. Divide everything by 3 to get y alone. Now y equals negative 1/3 x minus 15 divided by 3 is 5. So this slope of L1 is negative 1/3. Okay. Now let's look at line 2. Negative 3x plus y equals negative 1. I'm going to move the x. Now I just have y equals 3x minus 1. So the line 2 slope is positive 3. They are perpendicular. I took 1/3 and its reciprocal will be 3/1 or 3, right? And then negative becomes positive. So a negative 1/3 to a positive 3. Last one. Determine whether the following lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So same thing, but now we decide. It's not yes or no. We have 3 choices. So we have negative 5x plus y equals negative 6. Get y alone. We have y equals 5x minus 6. So our slope is 5. X plus 5y equals 5. Get y alone, so subtract x from each side. 5y equals negative x plus 5. Divide everything by 5. Y equals negative 1/5 x plus 1. So the slope of line 2 is negative 1/5. So that means these are opposite reciprocals. Slopes means they are perpendicular. And that is the end today. So today we practiced parallel lines, perpendicular lines, determining if they are parallel and perpendicular. We also learned about positive and negative slope and how to find the slope of a line, including the slope of a vertical line is always undefined. The slope of a horizontal line is always 0. And then we use the point slope form and the slope-intercept form to represent the line. Thank you very much and see you guys next time.